Well, good morning, everybody, on this, what is it, February 3rd? I think it's February 3rd. So, what do they call it? It's a Blur's Day on February 3rd. It's actually Wednesday, February 3rd. But welcome to Morning Coffee and Photoshop Tips. I'm going to do something this morning that I recommend nobody ever does. And that is, I'm going to do Photoshop tips based on things that you guys throw out there. So for those of you that are watching, there are almost 50 of you right now, and I'm sure that number will grow as time goes on. You want a tip on something, if you're wondering if there's a tip on some area or some area you ever wondered, throw it out there in the comments and I'll see if I can come up with a tip on it. It is highly, highly advisable that you don't ever do this. Because there could very well be a time where I don't have a tip on a very certain topic. So grab your coffee. I see some people in the Netherlands, so it might be a little bit late for coffee for you. Maybe some tea in the evening. I don't know. It's 10:30 here in Florida, so it's a little bit late for coffee. But if it's got AM after it, I feel like it's still possible coffee time. So it's fair game for us here. James says, James has probably the most impactful question of all so far, and that is, let's see if I can throw it in here. There we go. What's up, Matt? What kind of coffee do you have? James, I have no idea. I think it's from Costco. It's whatever Kirkland's coffee brand is. I really that's about what I think it is. So that's usually where we shop and we get our coffee from. I'm not a really picky coffee person, if you're ever wondering. So bourbon, on the other hand, I'm starting to acquire a little bit of a pickier taste on. But coffee, any coffee's good. All right, so let's go dive in here. I'm going to jump in and let's go take a look at some Photoshop stuff, some Photoshop tips. Again, remember the whole point is you guys have to come up with some. You guys have to keep this going. I'll kick it off with a couple, but I'll do this for about 10 minutes. If you guys can keep it going for 10 minutes of random tips. All right, tip number one, layers panel. So this is a really good one. In the layers panel, you will see there's a tiny, every panel has a little menu on it, and it's really hard to see. They call it a hamburger menu. It's little, like 4 or 5 little lines, and you just follow the panel over to the right. If you click on that, the layers, you can see a little pop-out area here. And then if you go down to the bottom, you will see a little place to choose panel options. Okay, so that's going to open up panel options. I don't know many people that use Photoshop that say my eyesight is perfect and I never ever have a problem using interfaces on computers. I don't know many people that ever say that. So one of my favorite things, like anytime I sit down at a new computer, this is something I have to do, is I go into these panel options and I have to choose large thumbnails. That'll affect the size of the thumbnail here. So if you go down here, you choose none, or I'll choose small, I'll click OK. I'm gonna hit Command or Control J a bunch of times so that you can see what it looks like here with a whole bunch of different layers in it. So you can see how small those layer thumbnails are. Very hard to see what's on that layer. I think the default is the medium size that we have right here. I always come in here and I change this one to the large one. So when I click OK, we'll go in here and you can see that the thumbnails just get larger. So it's super simple. It's nothing crazy, but it is something that I constantly use, or every time I sit down at a computer, if I sit down at somebody else's computer, I have to do that because I can't deal with those smaller thumbnails. So there's one for you. Let's see here. So let's switch back over to here. I'm going to ask you one big favor so I can see where we got the ball rolling. I got some things I can work off here in the comments. Remember, if you just joined in, and I can see a bunch more people have joined in. This is Morning Coffee and Photoshop tips, but I'm doing something very unadvisable, and I'm basing the tips off the things you guys throw out there. So this could be bad, but if you would do me a gigantic favor, like this video, more importantly, if you could share it, I would be greatly appreciated. So I'm on the hunt for 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. I'm close to 90,000 right now. I'm hoping to get this in maybe the first quarter. It might be the first half of the year. But here's the thing. The way YouTube works is it's social media is no different from the media. What's the media thrive on? Drama. So when you see all those headlines that say the most amazing secret thing that you've never heard of that'll change your life, like that's how you grow on YouTube, and you got to come up with those headlines. I usually don't do that. You know, if I have a brush tip, I call it a very awesome Photoshop brush tip, or if I've got a layers tip, I call it layer tip. So I'm probably not going to grow to millions and millions of subscribers because I don't come up with dramatic headlines. So you guys have to help me get there. I'd greatly appreciate it if you would make sure you've subscribed, but also share this with anybody. If you've got a camera club or friends or whatever. I really appreciate it. Okay. Let's see here. So Robert's got a good one here. Let's go take a look at Robert. So how to remove a blue shift in landscapes and keep it natural looking. Dehaze doesn't work and can cause a color shift itself. So yeah, Robert's dead on that one. He's absolutely right. So dehaze often adds a weird color shift. So let's go jump back onto the screen here. So a blue shift to a landscape. So let's go take this one. And here's what I'll do is I'll fake it. All right. I'm going to go in here and actually fake a little bit more of a blue tint onto the photo. All right. Something like that. All right. So if that's what you have, we have a couple of ways we could do it. You know, one way, it's super simple. You could go image adjustments here. And there's a couple of little auto things inside of here. So you can go down here or just go to the image menu. You can go auto color and it will try to hit that and it'll actually make it worse. So maybe don't use that one. But honestly, if you're in Lightroom or Camera Raw, what I would suggest is to open up Lightroom or Camera Raw. So you can do it the automatic way, which is to go grab the eyedropper tool. Okay, and this is this is kind of Photoshop tips, so I'm staying in Photoshop, but the same would work for Lightroom. Grab the eyedropper tool and then click on something grayish in the photo and that'll neutralize it. Okay, that'll help neutralize that area so you can see that made it a little bit warmer. I'd probably pull back on the exposure a little bit there. The other thing that you could do is just do it the manual way, which is just move the slider. Move the temperature slider. So if it's over to the blue, you want to move it over toward the warmer side there, and that will help shift blue. The other thing that you could do is if you wanted to here. Let me go backtrack a second. Let's see what I got open here. We'll use this one. It's not quite as hazy as I would. And I'll even pop into Lightroom. Let me see if I have anything that's got some haze in it. I might, in fact, have a photo that I can take a look for you here. So I'm just going to do a search through my folders. There's a tip for you, by the way. You could go into your folders panel, and you can go in your folders panel, and there at the top there's a little search icon, and you can just type in your search. And I typed in haze, so I know I have a folder. I do a lot of tutorials, so I have a folder in here called haze because I did a tutorial on haze. So here, let's reset that. All right, so one of the things you can do is, as I said before, you could always come up here and you could warm the photo up. You could also take the brush, and if you were doing something with haze, by the way, here's another tip for you. So you'll notice right up there at the top, I double click the word effect and it resets all your sliders for you. So there's a little word effect up there. It resets all the sliders. If I were to add some dehaze to the brush and start painting, I'll even go a little bit stronger here. If I were to add some dehaze to the brush and start painting, it definitely will make things blue. One of the things that you can do is go in there and warm that area as well. All right, so as I add dehaze, makes it blue. You can see, try to zoom in a little bit more for you. Okay, see how blue it gets? But you just shift it with the temperature. So you could still use dehaze to work on hazy areas. dehaze will almost always make something very, very blue. In this case, and you just you go up there and you just shift it to the warmth a little bit, to the yellow side, and that will help that one out as well. All right, let's go take a look through. Let's see here. Best way to exclude an area of the photo using luminosity masks. I use a brush in tight sections like building windows. It becomes difficult. So John, a luminosity mask, in a nutshell, I can't dive deep into luminosity masks here because that'll be a huge tutorial in and of itself. But what I could say is we can command or control click on the RGB layer here, and that's going to put a selection around the luminance values, okay? And then if I turn that selection into a channel, what I have here is what's called a luminosity mask. It's a selection of the luminance values inside of there. So if I were to ever command or control click on that selection and do an adjustment here on a layer, all right, so I'll go in here and I'll do image, adjustments, curves. If I were to ever do an adjustment, I'm making the luminance values, which is bright or dark, I'm making them darker or brighter. So I'm taking the brightest stuff in the photo, the luminance, I'm making them brighter or darker, okay? So John is asking how to go in there and how to refine that a little bit. Well, one of the things you can do is remember this channel, this mask that was created, it's black and white. We can refine it with any of the tools that we would normally refine a photo with. Okay, so we can refine it with levels, and I can go in here and I can kind of choke down on the blacks or the whites. And now you could see, now I'm getting to the point where I'm really, really just targeting the luminance. The white stuff is the stuff that'll be selected, the brightest stuff in the photo. So I'm getting to a point where I'm really just targeting the snow down here and some of the clouds up here. So that's one way you could go in here. There's probably 100 different ways you could do that, but that's one thing that we can do. Got a couple people watching from Scotland, a couple people from Iceland, and let's see here. So somebody had asked a question and says, so what's the best way to blend focus stack layers when a simple graduated filters don't cut it? So if you're not familiar with focus stacking is, you've got a sharp area and then a more blurry area in the photo, and you go in and you try to stack two layers on top of each other to get the sharpest parts of both of those layers. So if the graduated filter doesn't do it, I would say use a mask. Just come down here, click on the little layer mask icon, click on the little layer mask icon, and you'd have to go in there and brush. You'd have to brush with black to show and hide certain parts of the photo. The other thing you could do, you could also select both layers, and you could come down here to auto blend layers. It's grayed out because I don't have two layers selected, but if I select two layers, come down to auto blend layers, and that'll blend those layers together. So there's a little tip for you. Another interesting little tip for you here is, so here's I'm gonna throw, let's get rid of some of these layers because we don't need them all. All right. So let's say I start to build layers. So I'm gonna add text on top of here, okay? And this is a tip I use quite a bit. So I'm adding some text on here, and what'll happen is I'll see people that'll go and they'll make a selection of part of the photo, all right? And then they'll try to copy and paste that part of the photo to somewhere else. So you can notice I have a selection going on here. They'll try to copy paste that part of the photo somewhere else. Well, here's the problem. In Photoshop, when you go to copy, all right, when you copy, it's copying whatever's selected on the layer that you have targeted here, all right? So it's only gonna be copying from the text layer. If I go and I target the background layer, and then I go to edit, copy, and then I try to paste it, now you could see what it did there. It just pasted that part of the layer that I had selected because the background layer was targeted. But here is something different. Let's get rid of that one. So what you can do is if you want to copy everything in the selection, which honestly, I mean, it's something I use all the time. What you can do is do edit, and you come down here to copy merged. All right. So copy merged is going to copy everything in that selection, regardless of what layer it's on. It's going to copy everything that's in that selection. So it's got a keyboard shortcut, Command Shift C. That's one that I use all the time, so it's a good one to commit to memory. You know, Command C is copy, but Command Shift C or Control Shift C on the PC. So if I go to copy merged, all right, and then I go to a whole different document and I paste it in, you can see it pasted everything that was inside of that selection, not just the particular layer that selection was dealing with in there. So that's a good one. Another one is if you have multiple layers inside of Photoshop, and I'm going to start wrapping this up here, so I'll take a quick look, see if there's any. Remember, for those of you that just joined, remember our goal here was, so yeah, we've got double the amount of people. It was morning coffee and Photoshop tips, but the thing is I was kind of going off of tips of questions you guys asked. You know, what area do you want to see tips on? I want to see a layer tip. I want to see a camera raw tip, whatever. So that was the idea. I've already gone well over my time limit, so we're going to wrap this up here. But here's another cool one is if you Option or Alt click on a layer. So here, let's do this. Let's go make a little square over here. Fill that. So maybe something like that. If you Option or Alt click on a layer, it will zoom in to your document to that layer. So what I mean by that is if I want to zoom into just the text, I can hold down the Option Alt key and click on text. If I want to zoom into that little square, I can hold down Option Alt and click on that little square. If I want to just zoom in or see the whole photo, then I can Option or Alt click on that layer. So if you've got a lot of layers going, if you're doing sky replacements and all kinds of other stuff, whatever it happens to be, if you're adding text, if you're adding different elements to the photo, that's a quick way to zoom into just part of that photo to get in there and see what's going on with it. Let's see here. All right, looks like that about takes care of a lot of the questions that we're getting in here. Somebody had said a tutorial on publishing to HD rather than export as. That would be appreciated. I'm not sure what publishing to HD is. I would say the best way, if you're asking how to save a photo from Photoshop, come down here, go to File, go to Export, and then you go to Export As. All right, and here's a little tip for you. A lot of people don't know this, but you go in here to Export As, and the nice thing about using Export As is that you can do everything you want to do in one window. All right, so you can change the color space of the photo, you can change the width and the height of the photo, and you can change the format of the photo. So if I have a photo open here in Photoshop and I want to save it as a JPEG and take the width down to whatever it is, maybe 800 pixels or whatever, and it'll automatically scale the height, I can do that all in one window here. Okay, and then I can hit export and it'll ask me where I want to put it, and that's opposed to you doing File, Save As. All right, well actually there's two steps to this, right? It would be go to Image Size, and then I'd have to resize the image, which is a permanent change unless I undo it, of course. But you're changing the size of your photo just to save it, just to change it back, and have to remember to do all that. So I don't want to go image size and then come down here to File, Save As, and save it as a JPEG. Where instead, when you go to export, you can go to Export As, and you can do that all inside of one window, and it doesn't actually change your image in any way. It just changes the version that it's exporting, which is kind of nice. But you might have seen under there that when we go under to export, there's a little thing that says quick export as JPEG. A lot of people wonder, like, mine says quick export as PNG or something else. If you go to export preferences, okay, what it's going to do is it's going to give you your quick export format. So I can choose JPEG from here. I can choose the quality. I can tell it to ask me where to put it every time, or I can tell it to put, where the original document stood or whatever. But you've got all these quick export options in there. So that way, if I know I always want to do that, then I can set up a quick export as a JPEG, and I can always just pop in there and just hit that, and I don't even have to go through that window. It'll automatically just export this as a JPEG for me. So this one sneaks by a lot of people. It's fairly new in the Photoshop workflow, and I think sometimes we just I'll admit it, I use Save As all the time because sometimes I just forget that it's there, but it actually is a much easier way to do all that stuff. Alrighty, let's finish this up. Make sure we got any comments, questions in here. So I see a couple that'll jump in here. I know that there's a lot more people that have joined, almost triple the amount of people that have joined since the beginning. But you might have heard me say, just a fun little morning coffee. Drinking some coffee, giving some Photoshop tips. If you guys could do me a huge favor, like the video, but more importantly, if you could share it, I would be so appreciative of this. There's a certain group of people watching right now. I'm on the hunt for 100,000 YouTube subscribers. So you can help me grow it, because I'm never going to be the guy that comes out with all the dramatic the most amazing way to do this. That's not going to be me. So I'm probably not going to grow it from crazy headlines. So if you could share it with your friends, I would greatly appreciate it. Let's see here. John, your recommendation on exporting for Instagram to retain the best quality possible. So John, I would use the exact same thing that I showed you there and set the width and the height of your photo. The most important part about exporting to Instagram and Facebook is you have to go to their website and you have to see the dimensions that they are requiring. I want to say Instagram is some form of 1080. So it could be 1080, 2160, something along those lines. Forget what Facebook is, but read the guidelines on there, because they will tell you, and the reason why I can't just give you a number is because they actually do change over time as well. But you've got to go do a Google search, but make sure you get to the search that gets to Facebook or Instagram's pages, because there's articles out there that get written and you don't know if you're finding an old article, but they will tell you exactly what size to export as. And the problem a lot of people have, I think Facebook says under 2,000 pixels. So if you send them an image that's over the size, and it could be megabytes too, they have like a certain megabyte limit, what'll happen is they will transform your image, which is when it gets a little bit soft. So go to their pages, find out the exact dimensions, and then my recommendation would be use those dimensions that Facebook and Instagram are telling you to use. That's going to give you the best quality there. Got somebody says copy merge, learn something new every day. Sounds good. So guys, thank you for enjoying your cup of coffee with me this morning. Even if you're not drinking coffee, thanks for stopping in. As I mentioned in all these videos, I know sometimes people don't catch them live. I'm pretty good about checking my YouTube comments. So if you leave a comment on a question on something, even if it's not live, I will most likely get in there and be able to answer it. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. I know a lot of people are getting snowed in right now, so I hope you're staying warm as well. And I'll talk to you soon.